Having food forever sounds a little impossible, but it's really not as hard as you think. And that's what we're gonna be talking about today. It's tomato seeds that I took from our Cherokee tomatoes that y'all saw me pick just a couple of weeks back. And for your information, here's one. These are heirloom tomatoes. Here's another one. So I have a little stash of them right here in front of me. But because the kids, I would say it was probably the baby, slammed one tomato in the counter and busted the side open, and we were not ready to eat tomatoes, I went ahead and got all of the seeds out. Then I filled it with water, and it is really nice and nasty because I've left it for a couple of days and allowed all of that gelatin stuff that is around my seed to break down. Now I have a little strainer that I'm going to put my seeds in and spray them off. Then we're going out to plant these tomatoes. Then we're gonna have a heart-to-heart about how to keep food in your yard forever. So let's get started. Just like that, I have a ton of seeds to replant to make new tomatoes all over again. Get it out to the greenhouse to get those seeds in some soil. Now these will actually probably not start producing until later this fall, but that's okay because I have a greenhouse and I can just kind of keep that process going. I will probably plant again late summer for a whole nother batch of tomatoes because I just keep those over in my greenhouse and really just kind of keep that cycle going. Y'all see me in my Okie Expo t-shirt. I do highly suggest, highly recommend. This is a great. Did y'all hear all my greats? It is a great event because for somebody that is wanting to learn, I have had emails, I have had comments, I have had private messages. Even some locals that are around here will text me and say, hey Misty, I'm starting off, I'm trying to do this new thing, what do you think? If you're trying to learn these new skills, whether it be with raising sheep, whether it be with raising cows, say you don't have the land and you're just growing on what you got. Education is important. Sometimes experience is just equally as important, but the knowledge that is shared at these type of conferences and events, you leave with so much more knowledge. It is so worth it. Colby and I went to our very first one, HOA, back in 2019, and we had already been doing pretty much all of this, but we went. We like to hear what other people say. We like to hear other ideas and such. Building that relationship, y'all know, y'all heard me talk about that. I think that is so important, building relationships with people. But if you are interested in the Okie Homestead, Colby and I are actually gonna be there. We are gonna be there Friday and Saturday. I'm going to be doing a water glassing demonstration for how I preserve my eggs. I'm gonna be answering a lot of questions and showing y'all what I do with that. I've been doing this for a couple of years now. Really, that has been a game changer here for us because chickens do tend to naturally decrease their production in fall and winter. So knowing that you have those backups really was a game changer for us. So I'm going to be sharing a lot about that. Colby's going to be talking about gardening without chemicals. Y'all know that we do different compost tea. We have rabbits, and now we have tilapia for aquaponics set up. So gardening without chemicals is something that Colby's going to talk about. He's also going to be talking about Beginner's Pantry. You can get tickets online. All the information is online. I will leave a link, so all you guys have to do in the description. And if you don't know what we mean when we say we're going to leave something in the description, right under our video, you're going to see a little triangle drop down. If you click on that, it will give you all kinds of information that we put in our video descriptions. All of the information and details can be found on their website. Tickets are available online. I do not believe there's a cutoff date for that. I talked to Brandy about that, and she said you guys can get tickets whenever you want. I do know that tickets will also be available at the door for those that decide to come the day of, but tickets are available online. It will make things a little bit easier for you if you are interested in that event. Now, really getting down to business, how do we keep food forever? There are a couple of ways. There is only so much that I can teach you. There's only so much that Colby can teach you. There's only so much that other people can teach you. So there are a couple of things that I highly recommend. Start doing your own research. Books are key. Using Google is great. I would recommend starting with the things that you eat and you like the most. What I'm doing today on tomatoes. We have lots of things that I cook from scratch. Colby eats them raw, but I cook mostly from scratch with a lot of those. Tomato sauce, tomato paste. So I do enjoy growing tomatoes because my family eats that. I would not start off, if your family does not like squash, don't look into squash. Don't research that. Don't worry about trying to keep seeds from that because your family doesn't love it. Start off with something. Tomatoes are really easy. Start off with first what your family loves. Then I would say look at the easier things. Some things are just easier to keep around. For me, sweet potatoes, I almost just cannot get rid of them. Even if I leave a piece of a sweet potato in the ground, the thing is gonna start growing vines the next year. So those are two of my biggest tips that I would say when you're wanting to keep food on your homestead, on your land, in your raised garden forever, is one, focus on the things that your family likes the most. Then out of that category, pick the things that are the easiest, like tomatoes, like sweet potatoes. Another thing that I would suggest is learning the different ways. So not everything does best by taking cuttings, which is a really, really easy way to make a plant from a plant. A lot of things send off extra roots, which you can take those roots and make a whole nother plant. Raspberries, strawberries, those are a couple of examples that I can think of right off of the homestead. I love to take those things from roots because they're super, super easy. I'm not gonna try to mess with strawberry seeds because there's a whole process of cold stratification that has to go behind that. When they root and send off runners that make new plants so easily. That is one example of using roots. That is a wonderful way to easily make plants from plants to give you more food. Now, when you get plants from plants, not only are you getting free plants, but that's gonna produce you free food. And if you continue that cycle over and over again, then ultimately you are getting food that lasts forever. It's not as impossible as people seem to think. You just have to put your mind to it and say, this is what I'm gonna do. There is a learning curve. Knowing which plants split better by roots. Here's my next one, cuttings. Taking cuttings. I'm going to show you a plant that I took one plant and made 3 plants from. I shared one of those with a friend, but now I still have 2 more plants from the cutting from my main plant. Here's one that is pretty easy to take cuttings from. There are a lot. Basil is one of them. Here's one of the basils down here. Basil is one. Rosemary is another one. So here's my backstory behind my rosemary. This was actually a cutting, which is why it is so little. I had a humongous, like it was as tall as me, planted in one of my raised beds. Last year, I took multiple cuttings and planted those outside. One, I'm so thankful that I left in the greenhouse, which was this one right here. Now, we had a very unusual cold. The variety that I have did not like. I'm assuming that it adapted to our heat climate here in the South, and we live in the South in Mississippi, but we live in South Mississippi, so it gets really, really hot here. But my little variety apparently has adapted over the years and did not like the Arctic blast that we had back right before Christmas. Our highs was like 20. I cannot remember when the last time we've had that kind of cold, and I'm almost 40, and I don't ever remember, maybe our lows, but not our high. So we had many days in a row where our highs was like 20 and 22. That is very atypical for our area. Long story short, all of the ones that I had outside, every single one of them died. I waited until April of this year and I had absolutely no growth. So it was really, really, really heartbreaking to dig those up and throw those away, but they were lifeless. But I'm so thankful that I had this cutting, because from this cutting, I made this one, and this one. So I will use these. Again, some I will take outside, and we're gonna hope that it doesn't get that cold in our area anymore. But I use rosemary in a lot of my bacon, especially meats. So if I go without a rosemary, that's a problem for me. But now that I have learned to make cuttings from my rosemary, I can always have new free plants. The cycle continues to go, and I will forever have rosemary by just learning the simple technique of taking cuttings. Basil, I have learned, is one of the easiest things to take cuttings from. But before I show you how to take a cutting, I want to also mention the very next thing is seeds. Letting many things go to seeds. Basil is one that propagates well from cuttings and from seeds. Basil will also go to seed, and when you let those little white flowers turn into little pods, they hold your seeds. When they are dried out really well, you can get those seeds and replant your basil whenever you would like. But to take a cutting on this little stem, you will see this split right here. These are going to grow off to make another top. So if I was going to take this basil, I am going to take the cutting from right here. Now what I would do with this piece is gently come in. I have fingernails, but if you don't, use your scissors and gently snip those off. Just be careful not to hurt your stem. Now I would take this and drop this down in water, change the water at least every other day. This thing is going to form roots, and you have a whole new plant just like that. That very technique that I just showed you here is way that I use to propagate stevia. I have some extra stevia plants down under my tables. Citronella, which is right here. Many of my pots that are out around our pool and around the fronts of our doors. This year I said I will not buy any plants. I will make my own, and that is exactly what I did. Early spring, I come right out here, same technique. I found that piece on my stem, I cut it, I took the little pieces off because you only need just a little bit of leaves at the top. You do not want this thing to continue to feed the leaves at this point. Its main focus should be on roots. So I'm going to take them all off until just a little bit at the top, because it does need some leaves for photosynthesis. Mints, oh, mints are so easy. This is actually spearmint that I have my hand on right here, but I also have peppermint. And if you know anything about mints, they take over, they grow really, really easy. I have something called orange mint, spearmint, and peppermint. Again, rooting all of those, taking cuttings and rooting those are so easy. But that just goes to show you, splitting by roots, splitting by cuttings, and letting things go to seed. And we're going to talk about seed just a little bit more. This is fennel. I'm letting this go to seed, hence the reason why it looks like it does. I have actually already removed a couple of seeds from this spot right here. The key to really letting things go to seed, that I'm just going to give you a tip on, is letting that part of the plant die. Sometimes things require the entire plant to die. Sometimes only the flower head needs to die. Parsley is another one that I always let go to seed. Dill is another one. Carrots is another one. All of your peas and beans, you can take seeds from those right when they dry up off of your plant, those letting them go to seed. However, some things you have to let set fruit, get the seeds from the fruit once it's mature, almost to the point of spoiling. That's when you get the seeds. Here is a great book that I often refer to. It's called Seed to Seed. And when you're talking specifically about things that go to seed and how you keep that, because there are different processes within seed keeping. Some things go to flower, some things you get right out of the fruit. Once it gets to the point where it's so mature it's almost spoiled, you will get those seeds out at that point. Again, if you're like, I just don't know what to get from where, this is a great book to have on hand. How do I know what is best to propagate? By cutting, by splitting the roots, by letting it go to seed, by taking it out of the fruit. If I'm completely new to this and I just don't know what to do, I have a whole list of books that I have used, I refer to. A lot of times people will send me questions like, Misty, what is this? Or Misty, how do I do this? And let me tell you, I don't know the answers to all of those. So a lot of times I refer people to using books, and here's the reason why. I refer to my books a lot because I just can't remember it all. There are some people that are smarter than other people, and I'm just not one of those people that retains a ton of information. If I do it all the time and it becomes like a muscle memory type thing, of course it stays up here. But for a lot of the things that I don't do all the time or haven't done in years, or I'm just not familiar with, I have to refer to my books. That's why I encourage so many people that ask me questions. These books are great. Hey, these books are great. I have to refer to my books still, and I have been doing this for years, because the world of information and the world of plants and knowledge is just really, really big. So I actually have a storefront that I made so that when people ask me about questions about all kinds of things, I can quickly refer them to the books that I have a list already put together of the ones that I have and use very often. So I'm gonna put a link on there. I have bought them over time, one book by one book, specifically prioritizing the needs that I wanted to meet first. One of the first things that I dabbled in was herbs. That's kind of what got me started in a lot of this, growing and learning to make plants from plants so that I can have the same plant forever without having to constantly rebuy. You kind of have to know what is best for your family, what your family likes. Like, some people may or may not like basil. If you don't like it, don't grow it. If you like it, it's very easy to do. I wanted to help lead y'all and guide y'all into the direction that I went many years ago when I started picking up things to help me study and learn. YouTube and Google and books is great ways to learn and gain knowledge. And I spent a little bit of time every afternoon opening those things up and reading. I'll give you a wonderful example of how that is I'm still practicing that today. Y'all saw our very last video. I went on a hiking trip with our student youth ministry at our church, and I had somebody mention jewelweed to us a couple of months ago that I was not familiar with. So it really piqued my curiosity because I wanted to know more about this jewelweed. So come to find out, it is very good for the skin. It was in some soap. It's very good for the skin, and it actually grows in our area. So I thought that if it's in my area, I'm gonna find it. I did some studying and some reading on it. It's also called Touch Me Not. It's called Touch Me Not for a reason. I thought that was pretty interesting. But while we were hiking, I spotted an orange flower, and the first thing that come to mind was the jewelweed, because I knew after studying that the jewelweed or the touch me nots had these very extravagant orange flowers. They're kind of small, but they are absolutely stunning. I have this app on my phone. It's called Picture This, and the app is almost always right. I've only had it questionable just a couple of times, but I have used it a lot, and it will give me a plant name. I will go to my books, make sure it has all the characteristics for my books according to the name it's been given to me. So for this jewel weed, I was pretty familiar with it already because I had been studying. I took a picture with my phone. Sure enough, it told me it was jewel weed. So I borrowed some from the place we were hiking and brought it home and made a face cleanser for Aiden and myself that was very easy. I just took the plant up, brought it home, washed it. I didn't have to worry about sprays and stuff because it was in a very desolate location, but I still washed it off, chopped it up really well, boiled some water, dropped it down in there, let it simmer. Then I turned it off and let it sit overnight, steep overnight, strained it off the next day, put it in a jar, and voila, now I have a wonderful natural homemade face cleaner. And obviously anything that you do in life is going to require some effort on your part. Nothing that is worth it is ever easy. Getting some books, taking a little bit of effort to study and learn will benefit you more than you know. It is definitely worth it. And I encourage you to take the tips that I gave you today on how to make food last forever and apply those, starting with just one thing. Maybe the thing that your family loves the most. Practice doing those things, and when you master that, branch out to something else. It doesn't have to be complicated. It doesn't have to be stressful. It is supposed to be a fun, encouraging experience. So I want you guys to treat it that way. If you feel overwhelmed, just remember to take one step at a time. These are all baby steps. I didn't learn to do everything that I know how to do overnight. It does take time. It does take practice. If you fail, try again. The keeping the seeds, the making cuttings. Aloe was another one. I'm just going to tell y'all up front. It makes lots of little baby plants. Aloe is very beneficial not only for the skin, but it is also edible. It makes tons of little baby plants, and all of those baby plants are split very, very easily by roots. So there you go. There's just another freebie tip. I hope that you guys will jump off into this and start learning something, because it will greatly benefit you and your family. Happy homesteading, y'all.